Here we are, night before first game for the Chiefs and the Ravens. Would you rather be in Harbaugh's position? Take away like you just won a Super Bowl. Would you rather going into this game, talking to team, be in Harbaugh's position going into Banner Night or Andy Reid's position hosting Banner Night? And I'm just talking specifically as like motivator message to team. Which side can kind of fuel off of that more, you think?
No, I think Baltimore definitely can. I think they've got to look back at the game last year and say, here's the things that we didn't do well. And if we can do those things well, then, we have a good chance to win this game. I think that, Kansas City obviously has an excellent team, and there's some things they have to sort out too. So, look, these two teams are going to be around for a while. Nothing's going to be decided after this game. I think both teams have a great opportunity because they've had to prepare for a tough opener. And I think that's probably heightened the intensity and the urgency in training camp where, it's not a lot of going through the motions just, one day after another. But, okay, we're getting ready for the Ravens or we're getting ready for the Chiefs. I think that just heightens everybody's preparation and in the long run just makes your team better because you've had a good training camp. All the good years that I've ever been a part of have always, been the result of a good solid training camp where guys are ready to play and are prepared to play both physically, mentally, and emotionally. So it's a good opportunity for both teams to do that.
Yeah, it feels like Patrick and Travis have the right mindset. Literally, after they win yeah, they do. They legitimately feel like they just want to be great, the greatest versions of themselves. And when you have that at your key positions, that helps everywhere else as well, right?
100%. I couldn't agree more, Pat. That's absolutely true. And, I think their attitude is, hey, we have a chance to three-peat, never been done before, and, it's going to be tough, but we're up for the challenge, and we want to do it, and they embrace it. And look, if your best players are working harder than anybody, then everybody else just tries to keep up, and that's a great situation to be in.
Go ahead, AJ.
Coach, we hear about the message you used, anyone that played for you or coached for you, like what you would tell them before the game, whether it's night before or even like the morning of, you would kind of lay out how the game might go and what's going to happen back and forth. I'm wondering, did you do that always as a head coach, and how did you learn that, and how did that kind of evolve over time? And also, how do you know that? How do you figure all that stuff out before it happens?
How's that work?
Specs Murray up here.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think it's look. I think AJ, you know how it is as a player. Pat, you know the same thing. You listen to the coaches all week, and you get told 10,000 things, right? If they do this, you do that. And this play, we got this call. If you do that, they do this, and all that. And it's just back and forth. I've always tried to boil it down for the team. But look, fellas, everything's important. But we got to start somewhere. Something's number one, something's number two, something's number three. Let's not lose sight of the big picture. And really, a lot of that came from Coach Parcells. Bill Parcells is the best big picture person I've ever been around. He could absolutely sort things out and figure out these are the most important things we got to do. And he would tell me, Bill, don't bother me with this other stuff. That doesn't make any difference if we don't do these other things right. And so I really learned that from Bill at the Giants, tried to take it to Cleveland and throughout my career. And so, I think when you look at it, for example, like the Baltimore-Kansas City game, it comes down to a few basic things. The running game is going to be really important, for Baltimore to be able to stay out of third down situations, to be able to control the ball and run it more than they did last year. I'm sure they'll do that. I think that'll help their third down situation, which wasn't very good in the game offensively. For Kansas City, I think they're going to have to prove that they can shut down the run. I don't think Baltimore is going to not run it as much as they did last year. They're going to have to shut down the run, and then they're going to have to, play well and get off the field on third down like they did last year. But I think it'll be tougher than it was last year for them. So, those are pretty straightforward matchups there. We'll see how it turns out. But in the end, I think that, those are really important. And honestly, for Baltimore, I think that as much as Kelsey hurt them last year, with his 9 for 97 and a touchdown in the first half, what they really better be careful of is they don't get explosive plays against them by, the Kansas City core receivers, because they've had a lot of speed with Worthy and obviously, with Rice, being in his second year. I think that's a dangerous part of Kansas City's offense. It'll play a little bit different than it did last year.
You talked about Kansas City being able to stop the run against Baltimore. Baltimore adds Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry, anomaly? What do you think about Derrick Henry's game? And would you, the message is just hey, you're going to have to stand up. How do you coach against Derrick Henry?
Yeah, I think you absolutely have to stand up to it. This guy can... he's an explosive player that can push the pile, gain the tough yards when he needs to, and he can also, hit the home run. But I think the best thing about Derrick Henry is the fourth quarter. if you can get into a close game with him in the fourth quarter, he wears defenses down, and he's really a tough guy to tackle. Once he gets those guys a little bit tired and they're arm tackling, and maybe there aren't quite as many of them there as there were early in the game. He can break those tackles. So again, I don't think there's any way Baltimore runs the ball as infrequently as they did in the AFC Championship game. I think that Kansas City is going to have to stop it, and we'll see whether or not they can.
Why does matching him up with Lamar Jackson just seem like an impossible task to stop? Like that's like the perfect quarterback for Derrick Henry to be there, right? Because when I was at West Virginia, Pat White obviously had the speed to get the edge, but we had Owen Schmidt who was going to run you over. So he had to load the box a little bit, but if you're able to get outside, you're good. Lamar, Derrick Henry seems like the perfect fit, and when it happened, we were all like, of course, Derrick Henry is a Baltimore Raven. Is it a perfect fit over there in your eyes?
Well, I really think, Pat, the toughest thing about the Baltimore offense is their combination of power and speed. I think it's unlike any other team in the league, honestly. They have Derrick Henry, they have Rashard, they have a power running game and a mentality that they can get the ball down there and hit you right in the mouth. And if you put too many big, slow guys on the field, it's hard to deal with Jackson's speed and the speed that they have at receiver. They have great downfield speed with a receiver, so if you have too many slow guys out there, you have trouble with their speed. If you have too many little guys out there, you have trouble with their power. I think they're a really hard team to match up against. And you want to go in there and stop the run, but, you've got some fast players at quarterback, fast players at receiver. I mean, really fast players. And if you can't catch them, those guys gain a lot of yards in a hurry. So I think that's why they're such a tough matchup. It's not just Lamar. He's a big problem, but it's the overall speed they have at receiver. To go along with the power that they have running the ball and the attitude they have running the ball.
I assume more questions will pop up about this game tomorrow and the game on Friday as our conversation continues to flow here. So excited that football is back. Oh, yeah. Tone Biggs has a question for you, Coach.
Yeah, Coach, I know your record is almost impeccable against rookie quarterbacks. Going into week one, these rookie quarterbacks, the three that are starting, as a head coach, defensive coordinator, do you try to do more against them, or you just do your normal stuff and let the rookie quarterbacks make the mistake themselves?
Well, I think it depends on who you're playing against. I think you've got to take away, the things that they do well. I mean, so, for example, against Jaden Daniels, you just can't let this guy run. You go back and look. First of all, none of these guys played very much in preseason. Right, there's only a handful of passes from Penix, who it doesn't look like he's going to start anyway. Caleb Williams was 10 for 20, so he didn't play very much and only completed half his passes.
But they looked good, Coach. They looked good. He did one of these. He did one of these.
Cool.
He did one of these.
Yeah, well, so Nix played a little bit more. May played a little bit. So it just depends on those guys. Of what you've seen from the player, what you think it's going to be. With Jaden Daniels, to me, you can't let this guy run. We saw him in the SEC against a lot of fast players. Against Alabama, he ripped off 3 or 4 long runs, and then he got knocked out of the game. And I think that's kind of the concern with Daniels is just his durability if he ends up running. But look, this guy can run. You got to take that away. I don't think that's as big of a problem with, some of the other quarterbacks. So I think you play them, based on what you feel like their skills are. But look, they haven't seen any coverages in the preseason games. They probably saw them from their own team in practice. They probably saw them in joint practices. But, I'm sure that some of these guys are going to be tested with, some different looks and, disguises and things like that. But look, in the end, what I would do is I would try to protect those guys a little bit with quick passes, the running game, and try to stay out of a lot of long yardage situations and obviously try to play the game from ahead.